If we don't start telling our own stories the way we want it to be told, even on a small scale, then who will do it?
In the back of my mind, I was always like, when can I tell our stories?
A lot of filmmakers of color are finding that they have more freedom and more permission to make the stories that matter to them. And now we're experiencing an industry that is more open to receiving those stories.
The industry has changed because our world has changed since 2020. There's more awareness about inclusivity now.
We wanted to bring together an excellent cast and crew of Filipinos. And then the people who showed up, it was so exciting to know that they wanted to be there.
We really wanted to create this atmosphere of family, not just in front of camera, but behind the camera as well.
Here, doing this, it just made me feel like, oh, I am home.
I'm like, did that really happen? On set with all Filipino people that were impeccable at what they do.
I think it's still settling in for me, just like how special that was to be able to witness that. Mabuhay and welcome back to the channel. My name is Tez Milan. I am a Filipino-American creative. A little over a year ago, I was invited onto the set of a short film called Get Your Story Straight.
We're all Del Rosarios here, and no one keeps a secret like a Del Rosario, right?
And what's so special about this particular production is that it was written, performed, and produced by an all-star cast and crew of Filipinos. For the longest time, Filipinos have been in the entertainment industry, but it wasn't until recently that we've received the opportunity to showcase ourselves as Filipinos in lead roles both in front of and behind the camera. While I was on set, I had the chance to interview some of the cast and crew, and they shared with me the importance of Get Your Story Straight as a symbol of where the entertainment industry is headed and how Filipino creativity and excellence is finally getting the recognition it has always deserved. For him to feel encouraged to take the leap and say, I want to do an all Filipino story, cast, crew.
Yeah. To me, he was like such the trailblazer in that.
I think this is the first film I've done where it is all Filipino cast and all Filipino crew. And I've been doing it for how long now? 25 plus years I've been in the industry, so it's pretty incredible.
This is a second or third Filipino project I've worked on, which of the many projects, I wish it would be more than that. I'm happy I'm shooting more Filipino stories.
I think it is a recent phenomenon. I think a lot of filmmakers of color are finding that they have more freedom and more permission to make the stories that matter to them. And now we're experiencing an industry that is more open to receiving those stories. Whereas probably even 10, 20 years ago, that wasn't the case.
We really wanted to create this atmosphere of family, not just in front of camera, but behind the camera as well.
It's let me tell you who's involved, Paul.
This amazing team, amazing. Every single person behind the camera is just top of their field.
And on their game and excited about being a part of this. It sort of took a life of its own, right? It's great to see it on paper, to think about, okay, we want an all-Filipino cast and crew, Filipino-American cast and crew. But then all of a sudden, I'm asking, and I'm just gonna go to the people who are doing it right now. And they're like, yeah, we wanna do this. We're gonna do this together.
Here, doing this, it just made me feel like, oh, I am home.
I love that you said that because I think when I first arrived, you were like, this feels like a Filipino birthday party.
Lunchtime with all that Filipino food, bringing this whole
it feels
team
like a
together.
Filipino party, Filipino family party.
And then I didn't have any food yet because I just gotten there. And then the first thing that one of the producers said to me, he came up to me and he's like, oh, you're Tez, do you want a plate of food? And I was like, yes, this is such a Filipino experience.
All right, I just got the most amazing plate of Filipino food because that's how they roll here. That's what happens when you work on a production that has all Filipinos. And that was made for me because they're like, oh, you need to eat right now.
We wanted to bring together an excellent cast and crew of Filipinos. And then the people who showed up, it was so exciting to know that they wanted to be there and that they felt the same, that they needed that opportunity and saw it as an opportunity.
The industry has changed because our world has changed since 2020. There's more awareness about inclusivity now. And so yes, they're definitely being more specific about what they are actually allowing in. You know, we've been here forever. I've been doing this forever, but it is just now where we're starting to be seen and our characters are more nuanced. Our characters are the lead characters. Now our stories are being told. Before, we were always on the sideline. So it's really a wonderful change.
Because of the lockdown, it was an advantage because people just binged until it got to a point where, okay, what other stories are there to tell? And so there is a need, or there's a demand for different stories, because I feel like maybe most of the stories have been told already and retold in a different way and retold again in a different way with different faces. But there are other stories from other cultures, not just Filipino culture.
Just the level of exposure and level of respect that I think that we're looking for in an industry that has for so long
Ignored us
and
or
left us out. Whatever motivated that, you know, whether they were like, oh, there's not enough people to market to, which is like so ridiculous because we're everywhere. And there's so many of us.
I know, yeah.
Coming like fresh from Sundance, where for the Shorts Award, the grand jury and directing prizes went to Fil-Am artists, so Fil-Am directors. So I think, you know, that's validation that we deserve to be at the table and we're talented enough. So I think there will be more of a push for our stories. And I've always wanted this. And, you know, I've been shooting stories for like the Black, queer, Indigenous communities. And in the back of my mind, I was always like, when can I tell our stories?
Once we go on the festivals and everything, and hopefully we can get it on a larger platform, one of the streaming services, you know, it'll only help with that visibility to make Filipinos feel like they're being seen, you know, being heard.
Authentically.
Authentically.
I think that's just an important word. I mean, I know it's overused a lot, but I think it's important to see yourselves being represented authentically. And that's not like a Hollywoodization, if that's a word, of a character or a storyline. The story is being told by Filipino Americans in every aspect.
All I want to do is tell my Filipino experience and that it's appreciated. Like in that scene, I want people to see the love that I know a Filipino family can have on screen. And I want it to be a love that any race, any nationality can just like, because love and family is universal. I think that's the beauty of that script too, is that like it's messy.
It just reminds me of my own family, reminds me of my cousins, my titas, my titos, and you know, it feels like home. For me as a DP, I like to gravitate towards stories where I see myself in it. Otherwise, it just becomes work.
This is for everybody, and everybody's going to find something in it that they relate to. It just happens to be a Filipino family.
On the surface, you think it's about, did my character Janet commit murder or not? That is what's on the surface, but really underneath it, it is about family dynamics, the differences between siblings of this Filipino-American immigrant family. And I think that that is really what the heart of the story is. And it's also why people of all other backgrounds will be able to identify with this, because you've got the responsible one, the rebel, the free-spirited one. You have the one who's always in a good mood. I think every family has that kind of archetype in their own family, whether they're Filipino or they're Black or Latino. I mean, I think everybody will be able to, you know, relate to that.
Every family, regardless of like culture, is dysfunctional, but I think it's really interesting to explore what is dysfunctional within a Filipino family, particularly one that feels a little bit more blended, where you have siblings that are a little bit more, what identify more as Filipino, and then younger siblings who identify more as Filipino-American. And I think for me, having had the opportunity to live in both the Philippines and in the US and observing this, it's so gratifying to be able to tap into one side of me that understands the Filipino side, and then the other side of me that understands the Filipino-American side. I think there's something about like exploring dysfunction in a way that makes us laugh. And I think Filipinos laugh a lot about their dysfunction. It's our coping mechanism. Whether it actually heals or helps the situation is a different issue. But yeah, I think we laugh our dysfunctions a lot away. And so I think it's nice to be able to explore that in this particular kind of story.
Going into these projects, you kind of want to put out a good product, but you also want to grow as an artist in all aspects, right? From the director to the actors. So I asked Myra, I said, listen, can we add some improv in there? I'm sure it'll be challenging for the actors. It'll be fun for the actors. So she was on board and she was all for it.
I would never have known that you were nervous.
I was nervous.
And you would never
know. And no one's going to know. I'm only telling you. But yes, I think what was nice about even the struggle of the first day of lines was just getting to play.
It was almost like just playing. I think that's like important in like when you're creating art to be free.
It didn't feel like work. It felt like an artist retreat.
Yeah.
With like amazing people, and not even just people, but amazing Filipino people. And that was like undoubtedly like something I still have to pinch myself about, even like, 2 days later, I'm like, did that really happen?
Yeah.
On set with all Filipino people that were impeccable at what they do.
I think it's still settling in for me, just like how special that was to be able to witness that.
I was trying to think this last 2 days, like, when have I ever had that ever?
Do you feel like this is the beginning? Like, do you feel like this is just the start of that happening more and more often?
I hope so.
I guest starred on a network show a couple of years ago and I spoke Tagalog. And the stuff that I was seeing on Twitter, as far as people going, oh my God, did that guy just speak Tagalog? And they're so excited about this. I'm like, okay, this can't be the first time, so maybe it was, I don't know. But just that alone, like, had such a nice positive impact. So,
but it would also be nice to see Filipino Americans, especially in diverse occupations, not just as the immigrant, but, as the doctor, as the lawyer, as the policeman, as the detective, and acknowledging that they have a Filipino background, How exciting would that be?
Because that was a conversation that I had with pretty much everybody that I got to interview was, they were like, there are key people who are now finally saying, yes, we want these stories, we want to see these stories, we want to support these stories. And now that's enabling us and motivating us to do more projects like this.
I feel like everybody is getting more chances now, and that Hollywood is really seeking out to be more inclusive. Now, I think where it needs to grow is they need to also be more inclusive behind the scenes, because it's when the producers are of color, that's when we can start to see change. And I think that is starting to happen. It's really behind the scenes and the people at the top. That's where we really need our representation.
I think we're getting there. I think it's certainly a lot better than, a few years ago.
And there's an audience for that, because now people know who Filipinos are. And the celebrities that are Filipino, that everybody's so surprised that they're Filipino, are starting to acknowledge that to media and starting to do things in media acknowledging their Filipino heritage, which is even more exciting.
Yeah, it's huge.
I think it's also just about like exploring what it means to be gay and or queer in Filipino families. Ari and I were talking about this phenomenon where like some people will be out in a family and someone else who may not be out won't allow themselves to be out because they're trying to balance out the karma in the family so they don't disappoint the parents. They have relatives who refuse to come out because they feel like it's too much disappointment for the parents to bear. And so it's this really interesting dynamic about like, what are the secrets we choose to tell and what we choose not to tell? How do we deal with those dynamics in our own families?
It's good to learn about other people's cultures, other people's sensitivities, and to learn about humanity. It's not just us who are in this world. There's so many other people. There's so many other different stories and other colors and other experiences that need to be told and shared so we can learn from it and become better people.